Dr. Peterson, do you believe religions like Christianity have a role in the pursuit of discovering that which is opposite of evil?
I think that is what they are, fundamentally. I've spent a lot of time trying to understand the underlying narrative structure of the Bible, for example. Is a very strange collection of books, but it has a narrative structure. And the narrative structure is something like people fell into history when they became self-conscious. And because they were self-conscious, conscious of their own limitations, conscious of suffering itself, they were also able to become and motivated to become resentful and cruel and bitter, homicidal and genocidal. And that's, I suppose, in some sense, the genesis of evil. Our life is bounded by suffering and tainted by malevolence. And there's a pathway through that. And as far as I can tell, the entire Bible is a meditation on the pathway through that. Now, it's not a meditation we understand because most of it's story. It's embedded in stories. Stories are the way that we transmit information that we don't yet understand. But I think that the Bible, properly understood, is the best, what would you say? It's the best set of instructions that we have to understand what it would mean to live a life that would enable us to bear suffering nobly and to constrain malevolence. That's what it looks like to me. I can give you a quick example of that. There's an idea, deep idea, that emerges in the first chapter of Genesis, that being that extracts habitable order out of nothingness and potential uses truthful speech to do that as the mechanism by which that occurs. And that the habitable order that's extracted from the chaotic potential by truthful speech is good. And that the capacity to do that is part and parcel of each human being, something I believe to be as accurate as anything can be accurate. And so there's an idea right in the beginning, right in the first chapter of that book, that if people spoke truthfully, that the order they spoke into being would be good. And I believe that to be the case, and I think that people experience that in their own lives. You know what happens if you lie to yourself. You know what happens if you lie to other people and betray them. You produce little pockets of hell within you and around you. And if you cease to do that, then things improve, and that begs the question of just how good they could get if we ceased to do that altogether. So, I had a dream once, and I'm speaking psychologically here, not theologically. I had a dream once. I was in the cemetery of an old church, an old cathedral, surrounded by the graves, and there were indentations in the grounds where all the graves were, and all of a sudden the graves started to open, and it was a graveyard where great people, great men of the past had been buried, and so grave opened and an armed king stood up, and then another grave opened and another armed king stood up, and this happened all around me, and these were very formidable figures, right? They were the great heroes of the past, and after a number of them appeared on the scene, they looked around and saw each other, and being warrior types, they immediately started to fight. And the question is, what stops the great kings of the past from fighting? And I had a revelation after the dream. I can't remember if it was part of it, but yes, it was part of the dream. They all bowed down to the figure of Christ. I thought, and then I woke up and I thought, what in the world does that dream mean? What in the world could that possibly mean? And then I understood it. I understood that if you have 20 kings, let's say, and you took the thing that was most king-like about each of them, and then you combined it into a single figure, then you'd get a single figure of transcendent heroism, of transcendent good. And it's a tenet of the Jungian school of psychology, let's say, that figure of transcendent good is symbolized by the image of Christ. And the purpose of that image is so that even the tyrannical king has someone to bend his knee to. And that's absolutely vital. I mean, you don't have to approach it from a religious perspective, although you inevitably do, because when you speak of things at this level, that's what happens. But you need an image of the transcendent embodied good to serve as something that unites the great tyrants of the past. It's something like that. It's an emergent vision of embodied unity. And it's a psychological necessity. It's a sociological necessity. And I think it bears very strongly on your question about why is it that people matter. It's the classic Western answer to that, the Judeo-Christian answer to that, is because you have a spark of divinity within you, and that divinity is a reflection of this transcendent good. And it's obligatory for me to recognize that in you, and vice versa, if we're going to inhabit the same territory without mayhem, peacefully and with the ability to cooperate. Now you might say, well, the mere fact that a transcendent image is necessary as a uniting figure doesn't prove the reality of that image. But I would say, well, yes, but it doesn't disprove it, and it strongly hints at something more profound, especially when you also ally it with the observation that the encounter with something truly admirable produces the instinct of awe. And that's not a rational instinct, it's an irrational instinct, but it's a marker that you're in the presence of something greater than yourself. And it's not something that you have voluntary control over, it's something that overtakes you. And it could easily be a reflection of the truth. Now you can make a biologically reductionistic argument about that, but it starts to become extraordinarily difficult, because you enter into the realm where these transcendent experiences of religious significance and awe are a phenomenological and psychological reality. And it's not easy to explain why that's the case. So,
you just say that I'm somewhat.
Okay, briefly touching on a certain matter of a certain set of subject matters, briefly, roughly relating to where we left off the previous video. It's now a new video, also a new day. Let's examine the relationship between substance and form, and how those two interplay when we look at the establishment of codes of conduct by which peoples, if they're aiming rightly, ought to abide by. Let's look at the Judeo-Christian paradigm as a whole, and the set of Abrahamic religions, and how that unfurled. So you see, you have two types of people in life: those who get it at the substantive gut intuitive level, and those who don't. Now, we've all heard the phrase, "fake it till you make it." This saying is not completely untrue. And what I mean by that is that there's at least a slight bit of truth to it. Perhaps even a moderate level of truth. It's not a lie. Fake it till you make it. There is something to that saying, for there is an ability to slowly cultivate from nothing something new. That's how the universe, after all, came into being. Isn't that true? At first, you have a group of people and they don't understand right from wrong at the conscious level. I remember listening many years ago to that infomercial guy, Kevin Trudeau, and I bought one of his books. And in it, he said, listen, there's 4 stages of knowledge or awareness or information, or really 4 stages of competence. How competent are you at things? How good and aware are you? Well, he said the first level is unconscious incompetence. It's roughly related to what I was saying in a previous video. It's not only you don't know how to do the thing, you don't even realize that you don't. And the first step is then you get brought into the awareness that you haven't known, or rather that you become aware of the fact that you hadn't known. And then slowly from that you can work on knowing, and then you know that you know, and then it becomes so unconscious that you even forget the fact that you know, because it's so embedded in the subconscious framework that it holds true even without you realizing it. Kind of like tying your shoes. Like you don't even realize that you know how to do it. It's just so deep inside that your mind, you know how to do it. It's automatic. All right. Now this is how people are with morality. At first, you don't know morality. So when you're growing up and you're 2 years old and you're starting to interact with the world at a more meaningful level for the first time at around age 2, they call that the terrible twos, because that's when a young child is, they first attain the capability to do anything physical. They're able to stand on 2 legs, and they're able to start making more comprehensive sounds. So that's it. They're partially like humans at the more material manifest level. Well, they're terrible, as we understand. They're rough. They don't know good from bad because they'll do anything, kind of like animals in a sense still. Slowly, they have to be brought into the awareness of that's wrong, and that's right, and that's not right, and that's not wrong, and like that and like that. Now, this is also true for a peoples. But when you work with an individual person, it's easy enough to guide and tailor someone's learning for the individual, because you see how that one person is, that's how they are, and then you can custom tailor for that one individual. When you're working with a broader set of people, it's a little trickier, because for a broader set of people, you need a multi-pronged or multifaceted approach to enacting the moral law. You see? Because a subclass of that group of people will be people who intuitively get it. They have the full visual color spectrum of emotions and empathy pre-installed in their minds. They're not defective. So to them, you're able to say, listen, the right thing is to always dignify every other person and love everyone. And follow the golden rule and love your neighbor as you love yourself, and dignify everyone else. Don't take away from their dignity. In one long sentence like that, I've just said the entire law, just like Christ did eventually later on. But here's the problem. But let's say half of people in the group, sometimes less than half, they really fully get that, they'll resonate with that. You'll tell them only that, and they'll say, okay, got it. And from there, they'll live on perfectly, following that one substantive law. At the level of form, they'll intuitively, magically just do everything right. And they won't bump anybody the wrong way. Oh my God, how beautiful. But there's a different problem now. The other subclass or subgroup within that larger group of people, by today's standards, we'd call them cluster B personality types, or in a harsher, stricter way, we'd say like they're quasi-psychopathic in a sense. All it means is they lack empathy circuitry installed in the neuronal field. If you don't have a sufficient amount of that circuitry, the substantive law doesn't do anything if I say it to you. You'll hear it, but it won't make you see that color, so to speak, just because I show you the color. But if you're colorblind, you won't see magenta, you'll see gray. So you'll just kind of blankly go, and then you'll go back into life, and then you'll start offending people left and right. People are upset with you. You don't know why, but you're upset at them, and then you come back to me and say, no, I said love your neighbor as you love yourself. And then they'll go back out and they'll offend more other people again. So what was the Mosaic Law's answer to that? The people who don't understand the full spectrum of life, who don't have full empathic wiring, and from our standpoint, those of us who do, we can immediately tell who does and who doesn't. It's the most effortless and obvious thing in the world. But they sort of can't see themselves for what they are. So they have to infer that they're defective from how the rest of us prompt them. How do you deal with people like this? You give them the substantive law, they won't follow the law. So, what's the second best thing, God says? Well, I can't show these people of earth the one substantive law, because if I do that, only half of them will follow, because only half of them have the natural capacity to get it, to resonate with that vibration. The other half don't. And repeating the same law won't work. Okay. So then what? So when you put the training wheels on the bike to first get someone to ride their bike, why do you put training wheels? It's so that they can get the form of it when they don't yet have the substance. They don't have balance. So if they don't have balance, then you need to pre-hardwire, a kind of scaffolding, which is what the training wheels are, around the bike that forcibly keeps it up at the level of form, so that from the faked form, you can intuit gradually the substance that is the proper balancing act of riding a bike. When Moses said the law, he couldn't say the law in one sentence, because that was a new group of people who just came into their own, so to speak, in the world. They needed many long ages of development before, and the whole world as a whole too, before we can really advance the level of understanding and be capable of digesting the next level of awareness and understanding. So if you give a group of people the substantive law, as I said, half of them won't get it. So you have to install training wheels on them so that everyone is following the law as a matter of form. Then once they're used to following the form, eventually you can slowly remove the training wheels off degree by degree until you've transformed their aping, monkeying, mimicking into a coalesced understanding of the substance that corresponds to the form that they've been coming into the shape of all along. This is very important. So Moses didn't give one law. He gave 613 laws. You see that? The people couldn't get y equals x squared function as a function. So you had to go to 613 different places along the graph, plot x manually, derive y manually, declare the coordinate point, and say reside at this coordinate point here, where x is here and y shall be here. And then you list the next x point. But when x is -2, thou shalt be at y equals 4, therefore. And what's next? And when we were at 3.5. Okay, so you see how we slowly, dot by dot, plot a curve which in the substance is an infinite curve which has only one function, one line, and with one breath I could state the identity of the curve perfectly and fully. But when you're first bringing up a baby and raising them, or when you're first bringing up a group of people where some of them get the substantive law but others won't, so you have to work at the level of the weakest link in that chain, the only way to do it is to start at 613 laws. By doing that, we install the training wheel so that you're forced as a matter of form to adhere to the form. Even if you're stupid as to the substance. Half of you don't understand what loving nature is. If we let you roam around freely, you'd destroy us all through your recklessness. So in the level of form, we tell you, you'd better be loving to us. But in the matter of substance, that's what we say. But when you don't get that, we have a form we could turn to. We say, they're defective. So in that case, When you're in this situation, do exactly this and not that. When you're in this situation, do exactly that and not this. When you're in that situation, however, do exactly that, but don't do that. And I have to tell them a million things to manually plug in every single possible circumstance for every single possible thing that could happen in life. Then you have a half-working person, because even if they don't understand why they're following it, better that they follow it without understanding why, because the whole greater picture will function better that way. And then eventually, karmically down the line, they'll be closer and better able to approach the threshold of zapping into the substantive law. When the age of Taurus passed and we entered the age of Pisces, that's when Christ was brought down. And Buddha was a manifestation of this spirit or consciousness in the East, and Christ in the West, roughly similar time frames. Both of them brought the similar message. That was the substantive law, where people were not prepared for that law yet, because for the prior age, they had to get the form down. You see? Same thing with working with people. You say, hey, you're not being nice to them. What are you talking about? I don't understand. And they keep making the same blind mistake. Okay. So that's why we have the formal laws for people like you. Later, when you get it, or if you are able to cultivate a substantive understanding down the line, it's a slow and long process. Sometimes it takes many lifetimes. Eventually, you'll get it finally what that color really is. You'll slowly be able to start to perceive it. It's entirely out of your visual spectrum now to get it. But if we say, don't insult the dignity of other people, I don't know what that means. Now, there's one part of that video, the preceding video, where Jordan Peterson said something very powerful. I want to bring it up one more time.
And it's a psychological necessity, it's a sociological necessity, and I think it bears very strongly on your question about why is it that people matter. It's the classic Western answer to that, the Judeo-Christian answer to that, is because you have a spark of divinity within you, and that divinity is a reflection of this transcendent good. And it's obligatory for me to recognize that in you, and vice versa, if we're going to inhabit the same territory without mayhem.
You understand that? You understand how important that is? Why it is? Not only why it is that we treat each other well, but what the only way it is what the only possible route is to preserve and guarantee and ensure that we continue to treat each other well in this world and cooperate, is because you have to see the other person who's in front of you as if they're an extension of God Himself. When you're speaking to a live human being and their spark of consciousness is standing in front of you, that's the spark of divinity you're speaking to. Do you know what becomes the only time that is possible for you to abuse a person? Is when you forget that they're a person and you start treating them like they're just some thing. You fail to recognize their consciousness, their spark of divinity. They're an extension of that, and you're supposed to be able to recognize that if you're a properly functioning human being yourself. I want to tie this matter into something else briefly, an interesting concept. Imagine this, let's say you've got a really good-looking guy, and he grows up in life, and he gets into his teens, and by his mid to late teens and early 20s especially, he's going to be very popular with the ladies. So women in the grand total are going to be responding to him in a certain way. Now guess what? All the things that they're responding to, vibes, good talk, good looks, especially helps in the beginning of an interaction, as we understand. But it doesn't carry the day necessarily, really almost whatsoever. Eventually you need substance to back that nice shiny form. But here's the thing. Almost all of those things slowly wear away. So if you reverse the reel, you run back time, you go back to when, some celebrity might have been even a celebrity. When he was most popular and he was 18, 20, 22, 25, 30. Okay. Let's say that was a celebrity from 70 years ago. And then you go forwards, and actually today he's 98 years old. If I run him down the street and he tries the same moves that he used to do when he was 22, is it the same proportion of women that are going to respond just as favorably and strongly and well to him when he's 98? No. It's possible that some might, but the proportion is going to be much, much smaller. So what's amazing is that that's a fluid spectrum. You see time pass, and you see, okay, he's 25 today. He gets, 85% of the women will respond to him favorably when he, says hello in a very warm way. All you got to do is fast forward the reel. Now he's 87. If he tries the same move, 12% of women will respond favorably, let's say, and some will be neutral, some will be creeped out, and they'll say, oh my God, that's a creepy old man. But it's the same person. Now watch this. The decline, as a matter of logic, that decline happens. Yes, it does. But if you try to break it down into fragments of intervals, you say, which interval was it that within which that decline happened? So if you took one particular person, let's say every single day you picked someone from the population who was exactly 25-year-old woman, and you stood in front of her, you're 25-year-old man, you say, hey baby, what's up? Oh, hey. Okay, then you try that again tomorrow. Now you're 25 years old and 1 day old. Try the same thing with some fresh brand new person who's the girl also just turned 25 that exact day. Hey, how you doing, baby? Oh yeah, great. Okay, keep doing that. If you fast forward, you get to the point where the guy's 86 years old and a half. Hey, hello. Okay, what are you gonna get? Okay, right. So go back on the slider, find the exact decade, year, month, week, day, minute that happened. Which day is it where today the guy is 37 and a half and can walk in front of the girl? How you doing? Hey. But you're on the threshold. You're gonna wake up next week. Something happened between this week and literally next week. You try that, you're a creep now. For the first time ever along the spectrum. For the first time ever. So for that guy, it'll be a new experience. He'll say, oh, hey baby, and she'll say, oh, ew. And he says, whoa, that was new. That never happened before. I've been worshipped by women everywhere up until right now. And then you just look in the mirror and you say, who is that? And you move along the slider. You're headed to 85 now. But you see, it's a slider of subtle decline, and you can never catch it, yet it always happens anyway. And I mention this because I actually want to relate this to the relevant version of this. I'm not using this example as the relevant example, but it's something analogous to the next example, which is, look at how a mother, a father, or a parent, or an adult will treat their child or any child within a society. You're an adult and you see a kid, you're like, stupid kid. Not important. Unimportant person. Don't need to regard the rights of that one because he's young and he doesn't matter yet. He doesn't matter yet. And when he's 6 years old, he's just like an amusement. Oh, he's cute, he's entertaining. Oh, okay, ha ha ha. And you roll your eyes. At the level of form, you still treat them good, because at the level of form, we always treat kids good. But now half of mothers actually have the substantive love, and they love the shit out of their kids. So the love will substantively hold across the whole life. When you don't love your kid, you're only going to give a superficial entertainment of the kid when he's younger in a manner that seems like love. But because the substantive love was lacking, what's going to happen when the kid grows older? Here's the trick. He's 7.5, then he's 7 3/4, then he's 8, then he's 8 1/4, 8.5, 8 3/4. Is he still important? Or is he important yet? No, he's still a kid. Okay. When does he start to become important? When does he start to no longer be fit for the diminution treatment that you've been giving him as an adult? And this is the trap that many parents and adults fall into. We forget to, not only as a matter of substance, but as a matter of form, upgrade the level of recognition that we give of that person, and of what? Of that spark of divinity that they carry within them. So the Jewish people have a very good answer, and many people across the world actually, in their respective rites of passage that they install into their societies for men. Essentially, it is recognized that as soon as you hit 13 years old, you're eligible to be recognized as a man. And the day you take your bar mitzvah, which is an event, and it's a ritual, and it's not something you just do in an isolated corner. It's kind of like a marriage. It's something that everybody in the community is invited to witness as a public event that causes everyone to receive and understand. And the conversion isn't really for the man himself. It is, number one, to tell himself, I was a kid and now I step into being a man, and now I am a man. But what else is it? That's only half the equation. The other half of the equation is the rest of the community is there to witness that part too, because what's everybody else there to also signify, agree to, and understand? That we all agree that we will no longer treat that one like a kid, like he's unimportant, like his spark of divinity is of a lower grade of sorts, that he's not fully mature yet, so he's still something that we can manage, and we don't have to consider that person as much. No. Once we do the formalized ritual and tradition of bar mitzvah, it's, you're a man now. You're a woman now. You're fully recognized. Once that happens, you're fully recognized forever. It's very important, whether it's rites of passage, whether it's bar mitzvah. Guess what happens if you grow up in a culture that doesn't do that? You wake up with your family, you're 8.5, 9.5, 10.5, 11.5. Well, the problem is, just like the guy who's 28, 28.5, 29, 29.5, every single day that he wakes up, he'll carry yesterday's frame of mind into today. So it'll always catch him by surprise. Eventually, years later, he'll be at an age where for the first time ever, women are starting to turn him down more often. And eventually, 50 years later, many of them will be, and he never will quite have understood at what point that happened. He'll always be lost and puzzled and fighting with himself in the mirror going, but, just last week, or which week was it? What? I don't understand it. He'll always feel cheated in that regard. But I once was. Similarly, sort of. But truly, a mother who treats his son like an unimportant piece of crap thing, if you keep doing that without injecting a formalized ritual to come into the formalized recognition that this is a man now, so I am never allowed to treat him as if he's less than, ever again, every single day that passes will just be one extra day that was put on top of yesterday, where yesterday I thought he was a kid too. But because you keep playing that trick, when he's 17 and a half, And then 17 and a half plus 1 day, well, he's still a kid. Another day, surely I still relate to him as he's still a kid, because no one came up to you to abruptly stop you from doing that through an instantaneously injected ritual now, where it's a perma change forever now. You get it? So then when you never stop yourself from abusing him in that way, because that does constitute abuse, the infantilization of an adult constitutes abuse. He'll get up to the point where day by day by day by day, now he's 25, 30, 35, you're still treating him like he doesn't have the spark of divinity that you're supposed to be bowing down to. Because you forgot. Because no one told you. Because today is only one extra day from yesterday, which was only one extra day from the day before that. And all of those days before, I don't know, yesterday he was baby, so he's still baby. Yeah, but not really, no, not anymore. Now he's your superior in many ways, in terms of the substantive functionality. You're only older than him. Doesn't mean you're smarter. And we've reviewed many things about that where that's true. So, this is the problem. A lack of a formalized bar mitzvah or a rite of passage event has locked us into the trap where you fall into the false paradigm of day by day by day, not realizing that you missed the big transition a long time ago and you're still in an old mode and you're not supposed to be. That mode is an offense to me now. It's not right. And if the solution to that is to recreate a formalized ritual within the family or a small localized community to only for the purpose of prompting to your subconscious brain the importance of what's happened now, although maybe 20 years too late, but still better late than never, because some people need to fucking finally get it. Because here's what it boils down to. If you treat the other person like he's an extension of God and carries the same spark of divinity, that's the extension of God himself's divinity, you won't go into his room when he's not there and steal his passport a second time in a row after he told you the first time not to do it. Do you understand? Just like you wouldn't do that to your priest. If you wouldn't do that to your priest or the Pope, why would you do it for your son? Are you guilty of carrying two different kinds of feeling about those two people? Where the priest, oh, hi, special. Pope, oh, special, regard, reverence, bowing. Your husband or boyfriend, oh, special, man, bowing, reverence. What about that person over there, that adult man standing there? Him? Oh, no, who cares? I'm not scared of him. Oh, no, nothing. Oh, turn back. Don't listen to it. Oh, that one is problem. No, he's not a thing. You're forgetting to bow the same way that you're supposed to bow to him as to everybody else. Now you understand what you've been doing wrong, huh? Only when you don't regard the spark of divinity in the person do you treat them as a thing, such that you begin to manage them as if they're an asset, instead of relating to them as if they're God himself, or rather, more correctly, an extension of God. When you look into the eyes, that person has a soul, so it's like, soul worship, God worship through that vector point that's standing in front of you. If you treat everybody who you come across in this way, you'll start to live life correctly. That's what true love is. That's what Christ taught. He said, okay, now everyone around me might be mature enough to handle it. It's been a while. So here's the substantive law that we've kept from you that we're going to re-emphasize and shape in a new way. The real function is this. The real graph curve is this. And that could say the real law in one line substantively. Love your neighbor, this and this and that, and boom, boom, boom. Period. Oh, what a revelation. Now the whole civilization got reshaped because it's like, right. We got the formalized pixels before. Now we realized life is not the sets of squares that the pixels formed. The pixels were only there to help us frame the image for when we could finally pop in the substantive nature of the image, which is not square-like, it's infinite in its curves and resolution. You see? From which you derive the substantive form of, it is that. It is that. It is what? It is that. The end. You guys are going to have to start making that transition soon from the rigid form into the clear and true substance. This is the most important key. And while we have had that on the civilizational level over the centuries and millennia and the ages, everybody has a minor version of that they need to do in their own lives, in their communities, in their families, in their groups. If you fail to do this with the people around you, you're abusing them. You're guilty of breaking God's law. You'll come into sin, and God will punish you because you because you fail to correct the sin. When the person you wrong tells you that you wronged them correctly, but you don't hear them, then you invite every karmic curse to yourself naturally. People have to watch out. All right. Now, a third thing I wanted to cover in this conversation, this monologue rather, regarding my mom. Something I've considered the possibility of over time with regards to fostering an understanding of things, okay? Here's a theory. I'm hypothesizing that there may be barriers and impediments to coming into an intuitive emotional understanding of a thing when we use in life the wrong language. And I'm not speaking figuratively language or what sets of words to use within language. I'm actually meaning which language you select when you say a thing. Because here's what you got to understand. When a person is born and raised, they are speaking a certain mother tongue. That's their native tongue. When they formed up as little girls, little boys, they cried and were traumatized by this and traumatized by that, and they knew the upsets here, they knew the anger there, they knew the crying here, and the chastising here, and the shame here, and they learned all those emotions, which they tied into an emotional, lingual framework that ties into the mother tongue. Now, if you only speak one language your whole life, everything you do is in that language, there's not much of a thwarting effect to that. So you're going to grow up, you're going to become an adult, and then when other people speak to you in your language, the one language that you operate in across the period of time of your whole life, people will be speaking to you not just with words, but hitting the emotional facets of your mind with those words, because they're the same words and same language that played at the heartstrings of your emotional circuitry from when you were an infant and a toddler. So you know these things, okay? But here's the problem. If you become a bilingual and trilingual person, you start to take on a second language when you're in your 20s, and you really come into competency of a third language, English in this particular regard. You don't come into competency of the English language until you are in your 30s. I'm starting to intuit or realize that there might be a certain problem because the formation of a new set of words or language that is new to you, that was not the framework or language that was in use by your mind and did not work operatively on your mind when you were a little person, a young child or a little girl. You'll learn these words, so you'll wear them like an outer clothing, and you'll begin to use these words as an outer tool here at the superficial level with which to say other things. Now, if I was going to start learning German today, okay, and I don't know nothing about German, so German's not intuitive in my heart. It's not in my inner circuitry. Emotional circuitry, there's none, because German and my emotional circuitry have no connection. English it does, and Polish it does too. So what if I start learning German? Okay, sag sieben, sieben, sieben. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Okay, and we roll our eyes, and we go to Germany, and we start interacting with these Germans in their German language, sieben, aben, nuben, aben, aben. Okay, well, let's say I start a life there. Now, let's say I'm doing something wrong to some of those people, and then they don't like what I'm doing wrong because I'm careless. So I'm slightly older and I'm in Germany and maybe I have a family there and there's a woman there or there's neighbors there, or I don't know. Well, I'm just being an asshole to them and I'm disrespecting them or causing offense recklessly. I'm not being a good person. Well, imagine that some of those neighbors come down to me or my family there, friends or whatever, and they just start saying, you know, Jonathan, and I'll just say, yeah, that doesn't mean nothing to me. So what? You know, bigga is the form. It doesn't. I learned these words just a few years ago, so I'll use them to you, but I have to, when I interpolate in my mind to use these words, I do so in a way that jumps my emotional circuitry. So I'm just forming things for you. You're not ever reaching my emotional state. So when you try to shame me, I might be more resistant to experiencing shame because wasn't my crying language when I was sucking my thumb, crying when I was 2. But if you come up to me, shake me, and in English you say, yo, you're fucking up. Oh my God. Like I feel that in my heart, because like that's like, you can hear it in my voice now. I like imagine someone really saying that to me. You heard the emotional reaction? Because it's in your circuitry. I'm starting to suspect that this might be the problem we're having with this particular defaulting person morally, this Barbara Winslow, this mother. Because we're trying to speak to her in English, her third language. So when we say, you are bad, this is wrong, these are English concepts. So in her head, she hears ziga zaga dooga booga. So she just goes back without emotion, just booga 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 booga. It doesn't fucking mean anything to her. But if you shake her, tijle robis. Oh, now you understand it. Because it got deeper into your heart core emotional circuitry programming in the way that you are wrong. You are wrong. It's not working. It's not her native language. This could be a possible theory. This is a theory, but I also see a drawback to this theory as well. I believe it partially accounts for a degree of the effect or misalignment that we may be experiencing here, but I do not believe it's the full measure, and this I am sure of. That is because also certainly my own uncle Krzysztof, who came to visit years ago, he was relating to my mother, but in the Polish language, of course. Well, despite the fact that they were relating in Polish, she also was showing the similar limitations, perhaps only slightly better to a degree. Number one, because he's older, so she can't infantilize him the same way she does me, but nevertheless, she was also found to be, in fact, potora, which means on the rails, or like rigid, robotic, and not able to handle life in a dynamic way. When my uncle was speaking about this with me in Polish, I was like, it was funny because I actually realized the same thing privately, but I didn't speak about it to anyone else. And then when he said that, I was like, dude, holy shit, you're exactly telling me my own thoughts back to me. I've been seeing the same thing. I just didn't tell anyone or know what to say about it. I just privately would notice these things. He's like, yeah, I see it too. Ja też widzę. I'm like, yeah, też, me too. Fuck, wow, we're right. You see it too? He's like, yeah, you see it too. I'm like, yeah, oh my God. So we both came into agreement, like, yeah, we both agree. She's been off for years. Yeah. Too bad. She's not like everybody else. No, this we see. Everybody else we know what normal is, and we know that's not normal. So you see how far it is from normal. Does she see it herself? No way. She does it. She thinks she's normal. Fuck. Yeah. That's the problem. So the language theory could possibly explain a degree of it. So that's why my inclination is to try to imbue purposely, since I'm a Polish language speaker too, I'll sew in Polish. Why? Because if you just use these third language words, they didn't tie into when she was being beaten and shamed as a kid. If she ever was beaten, I don't know, maybe not, but who knows. Rather, the emotional, so we need to make wah, wah, wah happen inside of her. That's when you correctly realign life towards God. You have to experience remorse first. So if you're wearing a language, you teach me Chinese and I won't try to shame me in Chinese. It won't make me cry because this is funny words to me. You understand? But if you use my native language to me, you'll make me cry. It's a difference. So you'll work with my psycho-emotional development better through my mother tongue. This is the key I think we've been missing with this particular offensive person, since English is not their first language. So there's limitations to that. The particular witness that was brought in for this issue, unfortunately, is an English language speaking only and does not speak the language that this person that we're dealing with here has grown up speaking. That's okay. It's not a huge limitation, but we'll do the best we can. This is just me kind of thinking out loud and hypothesizing all the different kinds of explanations that are possible as to why it is that it takes so much long, drawn-out effort to get one person to understand something that everybody else in the world who would listen to this and see all this would get. They got it a million times by now. My friends get it. Why doesn't she get it? Why does she still keep doing the same things over and over and then acting like that she has absolutely no ability to see the wrongness of her own thing for what it is? Like perma-delusion. What is that? Help us understand. Thank you.
A sincere apology. Okay? Because in the past, I never apologize for shit, ever. Okay? I'm always in the right. Your perspective is false because my feelings are facts. So, you crazy. Yeah. But going through this learning journey of my brain, I have learned that I'm not perfect. No. And neither are you. No. So I want to go over some things that to show you how I have maybe treated my people of the past when they want an apology from me. Some things that we do when, you want an apology from us, and some of the ways that I feel when I want to get my feelings validated from you, okay?
This is a diagnosed cluster B personality or narcissist type who self-realizes.
Number one, when you have to beg them to apologize.
She's speaking about the victims of the narcissistic or cluster B personality type people who are the wrongdoers. And she's speaking about the victims who are approaching the wrongdoers, who deny that they're wrong, of course, for these apologies.
Now, this is begging, can come off from you, begging for the bare minimum. A lot of other tactics are going to be thrown in there. Basically, when you are begging for an apology, they are stonewalling you. Okay? They're not going to listen to your grievance at all. This will get, either no apology at all, or they'll just say, that they're sorry, so you'll shut the fuck up. Whatever. It will always feel empty. But this goes into number 2, which is...
she goes on to describe how the narcissist will
make the problem about you. Now, this is when they can make it your fault. Basically, you're attacking your disordered person. And to defend themselves, they're going to rip you apart.
with no shame or remorse, of course, whereas anyone with empathy would feel such remorse in such a situation to do that they would avert ever even being near the possibility of doing that in the first place. That's why it's very easy to tell apart people who are cluster B umbrella personality types versus those who are not. Extremely easy. It's the most obvious thing when you look at them and you see their actions for 2 seconds, the real core actions from how they're operating in their hearts. Like, oh, we see.
Childhood triggers and shit that you may have from a parent doing this to you. Any of these things. Stonewalling. Not even going to discuss it. Segueing away from your grievance, or making it your fault, or blame shifting into something that they're upset about. Lastly, you get the blanketed apology. Maybe. I'm sorry for everything. It's one big package.
Oh, I've gotten this one as well. I've heard this.
This is a lie. They're not taking responsibility for anything, because that hurts. For any toxic individual, disordered person, somebody who has fuck tons of shame, and they don't even know they have it, but they're going to protect themselves at all costs.
And all costs really means protecting themselves at all costs. What's the costs? They'll sacrifice the quality of the actual relationship that they have with the person. That'll be the cost that everyone has to now incur as collateral damage because they aren't willing to be authentic human beings.
They would rather do everything in their power to make you feel very small, to where in the future you'll never bring up a grievance again, or they'll leave the relationship altogether and not have to fix anything.
Yeah, easy now, right?
Today, I want to talk about a question that I was asked, and that is, do I feel remorse for a wrong being committed by myself to my partner? Now, remorse is deep regret. So, do I regret doing something to my partner? The only reason why I would regret anything, it's always for myself, okay? So, do I regret hurting my partner because they're hurting? No. Not because they're in pain. No. The regret is, oh, fuck. Now, how the fuck am I going to get this person back? Or get them to fall in line? Or get them to, whatever. For me. Everything is for me. Okay? No. They're not sorry that they hurt you. They're sorry that they fucked up the deal that they had with you. Okay? And that is it. A lot of them still don't give a flying fuck that you are hurt. We like to, we like live in this fucking bubble of feeling. We have our own bubble of feelings. You're fucking over there. I cannot feel your, fucking vibration of sadness, and me, feeling sad because you're fucking sad, or happy because you're happy, or nothing. It's like a fucking hole in here, okay? So, but in my bubble of feelings, I am happy for me. I am sad for me. I am angry because of something that when, you did something to piss me off, it's fucking ridiculous. But do I feel bad for being hurtful? No, because I can explain that away. You did something to piss me off. You deserve the pain that I'm putting upon you, okay? I'm not the type of person just to rage at you when you walk in the door, or I was gonna say accuse you of things you didn't. Yes, I do. Yes, I can be accusatory, but this is not like daily shit, This does not happen on the motherfucking daily. But to wrap it up, I do not have that connective, cord coming out of my heart chakra to you through my bubble of protection to, feel anything that I'm doing to you. When I look at you in pain, I'm fucking disgusted that you are in pain because you're blaming me.
Do we recall the story we clarified about what happened on October 9th? Where I'm on the phone with my mom and I'm screaming from the pain she's giving me, clearly showing, this is pain you're giving me. Why are you treating your son like that? And in spite of all the, which would be the equivalent of what you would see from your dog if you stepped on your dog's foot. Where you expect the person who did it to immediately empathically feel, oh no, I fucked up, I'm sorry. No. It was just dead silence on the phone from the other line, from where my mom was talking. Just silence. As if I don't register any fucking feelings about anything I'm doing to feel bad.
Okay? This is something that I grew up with. My mother looked at me like this, and it fucking just grew into my brain that all, hurt is a weakness. This is why I hate myself. Self-loathing is huge. When I have any negative feelings, shameful feelings about myself, and this is why I work so hard to put on a fake persona so I can live out amongst the meat sacks and be protected of any shame on the inside. Okay.
So the truth really is, these types of people, cluster B personality type people, they're actually weaker because they're not willing to go through the feeling of shame. So they're always trying to resist it. Meanwhile, everybody else who's healthy, where you don't have as much anxiety in life and have more of a natural empathic quality, what else also tends to nearly perfectly coincide with that? The ready willingness to invite shame. Good. The more we feel shame, the more we can correctly process and attune our regulatory mechanisms so that we're normally calibrated people. But for everybody who resists feeling shame as if it's bad, no, you're supposed to feel guilty when you do guilty things. You get it?
Okay, so everything's your motherfucking fault. You deserve everything that I give you. So there's nothing to regret. The only thing I regret would be shame-based, like, you stupid piece of shit, you should have fucking, did something else better to not fuck up this thing, Whether it's shady shit or, I actually did fuck up in the relationship, I'm never gonna tell you. I'm never gonna tell you. I mean, I do now, but, in the past, no way. I'm gonna protect myself from that shame.
This is what happens when a person's unwilling to be wrong.
So, if you are with somebody who has self-awareness and they are working on themselves and they are fucking sharing their shame shit and they are taking fucking responsibility, fucking stand up and applaud, yo, because that hurts really fucking bad to admit that I was